Thank you very much, Mr. Graham. And happy Sabbath to everyone. A few weeks ago, it was really nice that we had gathered at the lodge and had the other church members from Youngstown, from North Canton, and other areas for the last day of Unleavened Breads. And what was nice about that, I usually go to a lot of the other church areas, and I know a lot of people from being in the church for years. So it was nice to see the people from North Canton. I haven't seen them in a couple of years because of COVID and everything. So it was nice to see all these people. And what was even better was the messages we heard. They were very inspiring. And I very much enjoyed that many of the sermons were explaining that the holy day season, the spring holy day season, does not end with the last day of Unleavened Breads, but it counts down 50 days later to Pentecost. Now, I'm certain that everyone here remembers the sermon that I gave last year about buying a calendar and marking the days down. And I'm sure that December of last year, you guys just rushed out and bought a calendar and were just anxious to do what I had suggested. Okay. I'm sure you guys had other reasons to get a calendar, and it wasn't just to mark down the days. But if you did get one and you are marking down the days, that's good. From the last day of Unleavened Breads to Pentecost. Now, and the reason I specify this, the marking down, so we can remember, I was talking to Mrs. Thomas last week, and we were just talking about how crazy life is right now and how there's a million things going on in our lives, and it's just easy to overlook a lot of things, and our focuses are not where they always should be because there's just so much going on. And I was talking, we were mentioning how in Mr. Thomas's sermon the week before he had given that God in his wisdom has given the Passover and the holy days every year as a reminder for us. And he had said, it's not every 5 years, it's not every 10 years. And it's just a good thing because I can't remember last week, let alone 5 or 10 years. So it is a good reminder to have the Passover and the holy days every year as a reminder. And the same thing goes with the counting of the 50 days. And that's why it's important and it's nice to count down so we don't forget that it relates from the unleavened breads to the Pentecost. There is a continuation. So today I would like to dig a little deeper and just examine Leviticus 23:15 and Deuteronomy 16:9. It's two different scriptures coming to the same conclusion. So if you'll open up your Bibles or look at the screens, to Leviticus 23:15. And it says, "You shall count to you beginning with the next day after the Sabbath, beginning with the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be complete." Now, in this verse, we'll go in, to begin with, the Hebrew word shofar, and it's spelled C-A-P-H-A-R, and it's translated as count. So you can see, you shall count. And then the next one is in Hebrew, Shabbath, S-H-A-B-B-A-T-H, and it's translated as Sabbath or Sabbaths. And then you have the other word, Tamaya, T-A-M-I-Y-M, and it's translated as complete. And that's at the end. It shall be complete. Now, the Hebrew word tamaya is used 91 times in the Old Testament, and it's only translated here once as complete in Hebrew. The word really means more perfect or without blemish, without spot, whole, the whole thing. So we see from Leviticus 23:15 that 7 Sabbath days were to be completed perfectly. The day after that was to be Pentecost. Now, if you go with me over to Deuteronomy 16:9, and we read, "You shall number 7 weeks to yourselves, beginning to number the 7 weeks from the time you first begin to put the sickle to the grain." Now, the Hebrew word here that are used here are, again, safar, which is translated as numbers here, and the Hebrew word shabuah, Shabuwa, and it's translated as weeks. So to assess these two verses, the word Sabbath, which means Shabbath, which means Sabbath, is different from the word Shabuah, which means weeks. And the Hebrew word for to number and to count both use the same word, safar. So these two scriptures give us two ways to get to the same result, a Sunday. Now we see that neither one of the scriptures make clear which Sunday morning the wave sheaf was to be offered in a year where the 7th day of unleavened bread falls on a weekly Sabbath day. That information is gotten from Joshua chapter 5. To that information, we must add the realization that the wave sheaf, picturing Jesus Christ, could never be offered after the days of unleavened bread. And that's important. After the 11 days of unleavened bread have been completed. The expression from such a time as you begin to put the sickle to the grain in Deuteronomy 16:9 is not a reference to farmers starting their harvest, but rather to the ceremony of bringing the very first sheaf cut to the priest for the express purpose of fulfilling the wave sheaf offering. The ceremony always had to precede the farmer starting any harvesting. This shows that the Pentecost harvest is directly and intimately linked to the wave sheaf offering. Performing this wave sheaf would not in any way have distracted from the observance of the first day of the unleavened breads, when that was on a Sunday. If anything, it would enhance the day and the importance in God's plan. So again, it was nice to hear the messages this year of how the spring holy days did not just end with the last day of unleavened breads, but it stretches to Pentecost with the full count of 50 days, and we see the correct way to count those days. Now, I myself am old enough and have been in the church long enough to remember back in 1974 when the church came into the correct understanding of the counting of 50 days. Back then, before 1974, we used to observe Pentecost on a Monday. Then it came to light that it should be observed on Sundays. For me, as a 13-year-old kid, personally, I was just happy because if it was on Monday, then I would go to school on Tuesday and all the kids would say, "Hey, where were you? You know, we missed you yesterday." And I would have to tell them, I went to church, and that would just confuse them even more that I went to church on a Monday. So it just made it so much easier for me, being a 13-year-old, to just go to church on Sunday and nobody knew anything different. But now we can look forward to the day of Pentecost, and we now are in the countdown period to it. So let's continue to remember the spring holy days and keep focus on all of God's holy days and God's master plan. Have a wonderful Sabbath.